So with Unreal, I began with the project settings. I made a player jump, a quit button, a menu load button, a sword attack, a dash, a firing attack as the action mappings. Then I did the axis mappings of move left, move right, move up, move down. And I set key presses for each of these so that later I would be able to trigger the key presses. After importing my sprite, I've given the player the ability to move right and move left. Essentially, I've chose whether they're moving on the x-axis, so whether they're moving left or right across the screen, and on the event tick, so it's going to check this 60 times a second as to whether or not the player is moving left or right, and then it will set the control rotation, so it's going to flip my flipbook of the character walking. So if you walk to the left, then the character will face left, and if you walk to the right, the character will face right, and then it updates the animation. The reason I've used the update animation is simply because, as well as this control rotation, I've made an animation state machine. So this is my animation state machine, and what this is it's deciding which state of animation to go into depending on particular variables. So I've added is falling, is moving, is climbing, and is attacking. The condition is that I'm climbing, and if this is true, then it will activate the climbing animation, which then updates the flipbook through this climb node here. And then it's got the same for each of these. So if it's false, so if you're not climbing, then it's saying, are you attacking? And if that's true, then it updates the animation again. If it's false, then it's saying, are you moving? And if that's true, then you are jumping. And then if that's false, then you must be walking. So if you're moving, but you're not falling, then you must be walking, because I don't have any other movement animations. So then that activates the walking. And then if you're not walking, so if that's false, then you must be idle, because there's no other animations. So if you're not doing any of these other animations, then you're doing the idle animation. And what this is doing is it's updating the outbook flipbook based on these flipbooks that I've added. So I'm in this custom event, and then I've used the update animation to update the rotation. So it will complete these animations first, then update the animation, and then from the update animation it will decide the rotation. So it will allow me to be able to jump left and right, move left and right, idle left and right, etc. So next I wanted to add a couple of abilities. So I wanted to add the ability for the character to jump multiple times, so they can do double jumps or triple jumps. So what I've done is I've created an input action of the player's jump, which is the spacebar, and I've added this custom jump. So in my custom jump, what it's saying is once the character jumps, it uses this, just ignore these, it uses the launch character, and what it's doing is it's launching the character on the z-axis, so it's launching the character upwards, and then it's based on an actual counter. So I've made a jump counter, made this jump counter, allows me to change the number of total jumps that the character can make before landing on the ground. Now I've also put these in here, these are my jump sound effects. So what this one does is this one plays the sound of a jump when the character jumps the first time, and then this one plays it for the multiple jump. Another thing that I added to the jump was the wall jump ability. So I wanted the character to be able to bounce off of walls to be able to get to higher platforms. So what my wall jump ability does is I've got a custom event, and it does a line trace based on the capsule radius of the actor. So around the actor I've created a capsule so that I can have collisions, so that I could stand on the platforms and things like that. So what it's saying is, based on the distance around the capsule, is it colliding with something? So it's saying, is it colliding with something that is next to it? So is there a wall next to it, basically? And if there is, then it will launch the character. Well, if there isn't, then it won't launch the character, it will just do a single normal jump. And this is a jump velocity here, I made a note here, because I can adjust this. So if I want to be able to jump and bounce slightly off the wall, I would lower that. And if I wanted to go flying off the wall, I could increase that to say 1,000. Next, I added one more ability to the character, which is the dash ability. So for this, I've got the input action dash, which I created earlier in my project settings. And if it's true, so if I do press it, then it launches the character. As you can see, I put 350, so it pushes the character across the screen really fast, and if it's false then the character just stays the same and it doesn't move any faster. So for this you would press shift while you're moving and it will send you flying across the screen, and I could increase this if I wanted to speed that up. The next thing that I added to the character was a firing projectile, so I wanted the character to be able to shoot. So for this I used the input firing attack, and the reason that this is this way round and that isn't connected to true is that this is just a check to see if the character is already firing, and I've added this because it prevents spam. If I didn't have this then the character would be able to just continually press X. So I've set a delay of 0.4 so that they can't continue attacking really fast, if they press it. Next I created an adjustable ladder. So on the input axis that you move up, so you press the W key, this is saying when you finish your climb that you'll return to the walking movement node, and this is so that you can, if you walk to the side of the ladder, you fall off walking, so you can walk off the ladder, and you can also jump off the ladder, so if you want to exit the ladder quickly. Next I added the health bar for the character. So for this I created a health bar widget. So this is the health bar widget, so I've just got the word health and then I've got a bar which moves up and down, so when you would lose health the bar drains, and if you were to increase health the bar would rise up. What I've done is I've connected my damage event to the health bar, so it's saying if the character is damaged to reduce the health on the bar, under the condition that the character's health is above 0 then it does nothing, so the character stays alive. And if the character's health is, if it's false and the character's health is not above 0 and it's at 0, then it kills the character, so it disables input so that you can't press anything on your keyboard, and it destroys the actor so that the character disappears off the screen. The character is hit by an arrow, it plays that sound. If I wanted to have a sound for the actual character dying, I would just attach it to the destroy actor and it would play that when the character dies. Next I added a pause menu so that you would be able, it's a simple pause menu so that you would be able to play, you would have the options to resume or quit the game. So I've got under the input of pressing the M button on your keyboard, it will load up this menu widget which I've created. It's just a simple resume and quit button which you can click. Another thing which I created is this enemy, so as you can see there's just this character moving along the top of the screen. I've just used the same sprite as my character for this, that was just for testing purposes. It's going to constantly check if the character is moving left or right. What it's going to do is it's going to move this distance on the x-axis, and it's the same just so the character doesn't like walk off a platform or something by accident. So he's going to walk left 0.2, then it's going to walk right 0.2, and it's going to set the world rotation, so it's going to switch this to 180 degrees. So when he walks right, he then turns around and walks left. So in the construction script, it looks a little bit messy, but I couldn't really organise this as much. The ladder top, so what it's doing, it's got a ladder top and a ladder bottom, and it just means that I can extend the actual thing by the ladder top. So I've added a 3D widget which allows you to move the ladder and adjust the ladder. So if I was to actually go up to this ladder, I can select this 3D widget which I've created, and I can actually scale the ladder. So as you can see, the actual ladder scale can change, and I've created a rung offset so that I can actually adjust the width between each of these steps. So if I want them to be closer together or I want them to be further apart, I can increase that. And what it's doing is it's creating that within the actual box that I've created. As you can see with the rings, I can adjust them and I can add more of them in. What it does is I've added it to a counter on the top of the screen. Basically works out based on an integer plus an integer that each time you pick up a ring it adds 1 onto the current count that you have. I also created this follow camera so that basically it will actually have to catch up with the player, so that when you jump up and down the camera doesn't directly follow the player. There is an inbuilt function in Unreal, but there were problems that I was having with it where you would jump into the wall. As well as these, one thing that I did make is an arrow spawner, and it shoots left and right.